Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at price elasticity of demand, also called PED, but we're looking at the really important stuff. We're looking at understanding what it's for and what it means, not just the graphs that people often show. How is it used in business and why is it so important? So we're going to be looking at the concept, explaining it simply, and then we're looking at the key factors that affect PED. As ever, I'm going to do it with a silly story, so let's get into it. Now, the first silly story is going to be based around Navia's pasta. This is Navia on my screen, and she sells just pasta sold in a supermarket in shops. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her and her competitors. Navia typically sells her about 8 million. She has a demand of 8 million packets sold per year, and she sells each packet at 79 pence. Now, if she's got some competitors that sit alongside her on the shelf of the supermarket, she's got Quick Pasta. Now, they typically sell at 82 pence, and they have a demand of about 6 million packets sold per year. Then we've got Homemade Pasta, and that's a bit higher, that's 83 pence, and they sell about 5 million packets a year. Right, so there's setting the scene. Now, into my story, I'm going to add Mr. Enthusiastic, Pablo. Pablo goes in, super keen, he gets a job at this company, and he straight away, overly enthusiastic as a young person, books an appointment with Navia, the big boss. And she says, okay, right, let's have a meet. He says, no, I've got good news for you. I've got a great idea. She reluctantly says, let's hear your idea. He says, look, Navia, you sell 8 million a year at 79 pence. If you increase the price just by a tiny amount, 10 cents, it's not much, but if you increase it by 10 pence, then you're going to massively increase your revenue. What do you think? You can pause the video now. Is Pablo a genius or not? Have a little think. Okay, well, she calls him in and she says, talk to me then, Pablo. Explain why you think this. He says, no, I've done the maths. Look at it. He goes, I know from business studies at school, revenue is selling price times number sold. So I worked out that you have a selling price of 79 pence and you sell 8 million a year. That means you get a revenue of 6.32 million pounds a year. Here's the deal though, this is genius. He says, if you just increase a little bit the price to 89, then you multiply that by the 8 million that you always sell, you're gonna get 7.12 million pounds. I've virtually made you £1 million, Pablo says with a big smile on his face. Oh, Navia's not quite so enthusiastic. She says, Pablo, you've got confused. You see, you've made a presumption. Price and demand are in a relationship. I've put it in a silly heart there. There is a relationship between price and demand. You foolishly have presumed that I can increase the selling price and the demand won't change. But they will. There is a relationship. If you change the selling price, the demand will also change. Pablo scratches his head and he goes, what, will it? Oh. He says, all right, but not by much. You know, there'll be a couple of people who don't want to buy the pasta because it's at 10 cents, but they're just tight people. Most of them will still buy it. So you'll still nearly make $1 million. Navi says, no, think about it. It's not 8 million. In fact, look at our product. We've got Navia's pasta. Our customers are mainly buying it because it is the cheapest of the pastas. When they buy our pasta, they're buying it because it is 79 pence. They dream about buying homemade pasta. That's the luxury pasta. That's the one they buy on their birthdays or as presents for pasta or to treat themselves. We are just the budget. And therefore, if you increase the price by 10 pence, it might not seem like a lot, but that's going to take it more expensive than the luxury pasta. And everyone's going to know about that because I'm right next to them on the shelf. And therefore, arguably, only idiots are going to continue to buy Navia's pasta. If I haven't changed anything else, if I've kept the packaging the same, then people would say, why would I possibly spend more money on the cheapy pasta? For that price, I could be buying the best pasta, the homemade pasta. So in fact, Pablo, you would drop my demand to not staying at 8 million. You put it to near zero and you collapse my business. And in that case, Pablo, you're fired. You're an idiot. Sorry, it's not working. So there we go. The relationship there. So Pablo, very upset about this in my story, but no choice, he goes off on holiday. Now, he goes off to holiday somewhere beautiful, Thailand or somewhere. But he's quite persistent. He treks through the jungle, he comes across this paradise beach where there's tourists on it, but it was a real trek to get to it. And he finds Cal, and Cal is selling water on this beach. There's no other shops around, it's after an hour-long trek, and Cal is selling water for $1. Pablo is persistent. He's also done some reading on the plane about this stuff, about pricing things. And he goes up to Cal and he goes, Cal, I've got a plan. He tries the same thing. He says, Cal, currently I see that you sell about 1,000 bottles of water a year and you sell them at $1. If you increase the selling price, not by a little bit, but to double it, if you increase it to 2, you double the price of the water, you will massively increase your revenue. Cal says, oh, I've heard about you. No, I understand this, I learned this. Price and demand are in a relationship. So if I increase my price by double, then no one will buy my water because there's a relationship. It will really drop the demand. Pablo comes back and he says, actually no, I've done my research. There is a relationship, price and demand, but for your water that you're selling, it's not a very strong relationship. It's a broken relationship. So let's have a look at the numbers of what will happen with your water. Okay, 1 times 1,000, $1 selling price, usual demand of 1,000, gets you 1,000. If you increase the price by a lot, you double it to $2. I agree, there's a relationship. I agree demand will fall, but not by that much. It will only fall probably from 1,000 to 900. There'll be 100 people of your usual customers who come and go, ooh, it's too expensive, I don't want to buy it. But 900 of them will still buy it. And that will give you $1,800, nearly doubling your annual revenue. He's not so keen, he's not sure, Cal, but he says, go on then, let's give it a go. He does it, and sure enough, demand barely falls at all, and he's nearly doubled his revenue. He's so excited, he's got a big pile of money, and he calls Cal into the business. He says, right, I need you as my business advisor. And Pablo has a nice ending and works for the business. So, what a stupid story there. But what were we explaining in that story? Well, we were looking about price elasticity. We were talking about how price and demand are in a relationship, but every product has a different relationship, and we like to refer to that relationship. So, the first one, pasta, we say it is an elastic product, an elastic product. Now that means that if you look at my screen, I've got this. This is something, a hairband I've pinched from someone, but it's elastic. Bear with me for another stupid example. But elastic means a small change in price. I can pull an elastic product. I change the price by a little bit and the demand pings off massively. That's what demand is, hugely upset. Now it wouldn't ping upwards, in fact, it would actually, demand would drop. But you get the idea, a small change in price, demand really goes crazy. And that's what happened. You change the price of Navia's pasta by just 10 cents and demand dropped to near zero. The demand very, very rapidly changed. Now we have an alternative to that. We've also got water, and we would say it's an inelastic. I made up a rubbish picture of a catapult that would never work there, but that would be like this string. Now I can change the price with an inelastic product like the water bottles. I lift the price up a little bit, but the demand doesn't really change. It would drop a bit. We're not saying there isn't a relationship. There is still a relationship, but the demand change is minimal. Therefore, if you own and are selling one that we consider very elastic, and in another video we'll put some numbers to that and work out how to calculate it. But if it's very elastic, businesses need to be very careful about changing their prices because their demand can really upset their business. Whereas if you're an inelastic product like water on this beach in this one, then you can get away with changing your prices quite a lot and not suffer the consequences too much. Finally then for the video, in this video where we're not looking at the numbers and the calculations, what makes it either elastic or inelastic? Well, the availability of substitutes. The pasta is elastic because people went, well, next to it on the shelf, there's this other type of pasta. They've increased it. They're taking the mickey out of me. I'll just pick up the other pasta. And that makes it very elastic. The next is necessity or luxury. In that water example, those people were not happy about the price, but there was no alternative. They'd trekked through the jungle. There was nowhere else to buy water. And the water is a necessity. You need it. You get dehydrated. And therefore, it made it inelastic. They hated it. They grumbled about the price. They said that's not fair, but they pretty much still bought the water, making it inelastic. Increase the price, demand won't change very much. Thirdly, bit confusing, but time period comes into this. Most products over time will become elastic. In the water, in the short term, it was fairly inelastic. But if word spreads about that, reviews go on tourist sites, then eventually what would happen is people go, there's a guy Cal at the beach exploiting, putting ridiculous prices of water. And more people would say, I'm going to find the alternative. I'm going to bring my own water to the beach. So most things over time would become a little bit more elastic. And finally, for this video, customer loyalty. Navia's pasta, they didn't keep with it because they didn't love Navia's pasta. They just bought it because it was the cheapest. But if she can get a really good brand where people really are connected with Navia, really like the logo, really believe in the pasta, she can make it more inelastic. She can say, I'm going to increase the price by 10 cents, but people will say, I don't care, I'm still buying it because we really want to get behind the brand. Apple style, customer loyalty, those things. They can put the price higher and people say, I don't care the price, I'm so loyal to them, I'm going to keep buying from them. So that's price elasticity, that's the concept explained. We're going to have another video if you need it, because some of the A-levels and things need to work out the calculations and what exactly those numbers mean. Hope it helps. Any questions, put them in the comments below.